UK budget massively changes everything for people in the UK. It's massive changes. It's going to affect the economy for many, many years. It's going to affect individuals, and everybody needs to understand exactly what the Labour government have done. They've massively increased taxes. Tax burden now is going to be the highest as a percentage since 1948. That's, of course, an incredible change. They're not just massive taxes, however, they're also massive increases in spending. They're going to be borrowing more money, raising more taxes, but borrowing more money to spend and invest into public services. Is that a good thing? You'll make your own mind up. But it's definitely the employer, the person that is employing people, that's going to suffer the most. Why? National insurance contributions that employ people pay on their employees is going up from 13.8 to 15%. It may seem a small amount, but actually you take that across the company, it is a disincentive to actually employ more people. Nevertheless, that's what's occurring in the UK. You have increased the minimum wage. So people then on the lower incomes, they're getting a nice step up, 6%, just over 6% increase in the minimum wage. Of course, people that are qualified are not quite so happy. Why? There are many people that are qualified and now they're earning just above the minimum wage, and yet they've spent years to get qualified. So there's many people in the UK that are unhappy. Investors will notice that capital gains tax has increased. The lower rate, which was 10%, has gone to 18%, and the higher rate from 20% to 24%. So if you're selling an asset, a second home or shares, then you're going to be paying potentially 24% tax on any gains. Talk to a financial advisor, particularly if you're living abroad, because there are things that you can do to mitigate that tax. Inheritance tax has been increased. It includes farmland now. There are some allowances, but farmers are extremely upset. Many of them work crazy hours. They want to allow their children to inherit the land. Of course, that has been abused in the past, but nevertheless, inheritance tax on farmland is massively controversial. But perhaps for me in the financial industry, the pensions now are going to be taxed when they're inherited. That seems too crazy. We're in a world where you get taxed when you earn money, taxed when you spend money, taxed when you save money, and taxed when you die. Even if it's in a pension, any leftover money gets inheritance tax of 40% above 325,000. That's a large amount to give to the state. Many people will want to look at their planning. Trusts have been taxed in a different way to include inheritance tax. There's many different things that the government are doing here to really say if you've got a second home or you buy a second home, stamp duty goes up immediately from 3 to 5% if you're in the UK, and if you're non-resident to 7%, and then there's extra charges on top depending on the price of the property. So again, it's people that are employing people, it's people that are investing that are going to be taxed. The money's going to be spent, of course. It's going to be spent plus. In other words, the borrowing that is coming in on top of the tax raises is massive. Means that there's going to be around 70 billion spent. So they're raising 40 plus billion in tax, borrowing more money, and then that money is going to be spent on roads, it's going to be spent on hospitals. And of course you think, well, that's good. Okay, well, it's good if it's done efficiently or effectively. Of course, as many people will say, do the government waste money with their layers? Do the government waste money by putting in structures that actually don't work? And many will argue, really, when they're looking at how they're taxing people, how much are they going to spend administrating in order to collect the extra taxes? She actually said that she's going to employ more tax people, and that's going to raise more revenue. Okay, I always wonder, because most chancellors do say, we're going to look to limit taxation fraud, and we're going to employ more people, and it's going to create more revenue. Okay, it never seems to have done historically, but again, we heard that same story of we'll be raising more revenue by looking for people that are avoiding paying tax. Of course, that's important. However, I'm a little bit cynical when I hear it so many different times. Not only that, but they're also looking at a tax on QROPs that are transferred to people in Europe not living in the country where the pension is. So right now, when you transfer into QROPs, you potentially would use Gibraltar or Malta. Unless you live in one of those locations, there's going to be a 25% tax applied on people that have worked in the UK, they've worked hard, built up their pension, they move to Europe and they have a 25% tax unless they live in one of those locations. Of course, the SIP is good for many of those clients, so many would argue that's no problem, we'll move it to a SIP instead. And of course, for those in the pensions industry and the financial advice industry, that seems sensible advice. It's just the inheritance tax on pensions that there actually concerns me. Stamp duty I've mentioned, national insurance I've mentioned in there. Okay, we also see that they're going to be putting tax on private school fees. Again, it's just taxing people that are the business people or taxing people that have been more successful. Perhaps it's a disincentive for people that are successful to stay living in the UK. You make your own mind up. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Okay, what really is the case is it's massive tax on employers, massive tax on people that have invested money, tax on people that are inheriting, spending enormous amounts of money on hospitals, roads, and increasing the minimum wage. Is it a good thing? Okay, well, their own forecasts show a lower growth for the UK over the next 5 years than they previously anticipated. So in other words, despite all the spending, they're actually forecasting the UK will grow slower than it would have done before the changes. Good or bad? Make your own mind up. That's my review of the UK budget 2024. Thanks for watching.